Hi, I'm Jasmine Signorino. I'm currently Miss Central Irvine, USA, and this is my interview with the Pageant Project.
Hello, everyone. It's Adrian from the Pageant Project with you. My special guest for today is Jasmine Signorino, who is Miss Central Irvine, USA. Jasmine, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Now, just before we went live, I was asking Jasmine about what the weather was like in California, because for those of you who don't know, I'm in Sydney, which is in Australia, so we're going into winter, and I hate winter. Unfortunately, my birthday is in July, so for us, it's always in winter. What's the weather been like for you over in California?
For the past 2 weeks, it's been really beautiful and sunny, but it's been a pretty cold winter for us. Well, I mean, cold in California terms.
Yes, I won't get you to repeat what you think of as cold because I think everyone around the world has dealt with a lot worse. So, are you safe to say that you're a summer person then, not a winter person?
Oh, definitely.
So, what do you do to get you through the cold winter? The cold in inverted commas. How do you get through the
Uh,
cold winter?
Stay inside.
So,
No, I dress warm, I guess, and try to pick indoor activities and don't stay out too late because then it just gets way too freezing for me.
so you've basically been living indoors for the past 6 months.
Yeah.
Have you ever traveled to anywhere that's colder than California, though? Like, I don't know, pretty
Um,
much anywhere else.
I've been to, like, Colorado and New York a few times, in the
Okay.
winter, so that's been pretty cold.
And what did you think of that? Like, I know both of those places can get properly cold. So, how did that make
Yeah,
you feel?
um, I was practically freezing my toes off, but, just gotta keep the fast-paced walking, get to wherever we needed to go to get inside.
So, okay, safe to say that you're a summer person. What do you like to do to keep busy in summer? So are you an outdoors person? Different sports, going out walking, going out shopping? What's the thing that you've been missing most during the cold winter months?
Mm. I think just getting outside and walking. I'm a huge walker. I also enjoy doing some different like water sports, like wakeboarding and things like that. I really enjoy during the summer.
Which one is wakeboarding? I forget
It's
because I'll get you to describe. I'll let you describe it.
um it's essentially kind of like snowboarding, but on the water and like you're being pulled along by the boat.
Right. Okay. Were you
Yeah.
were you good at that the first time you tried it, or did you fall off a few times?
I definitely fell off a few times and I haven't been in a few years, but I really want to go back doing it this summer.
Well, that sounds good. So, I mean, that's not a winter sport for yourself. You have no intention of doing that when it's cold outside.
No.
Good to know. I don't know many people who prefer winter over summer, and anytime I do meet someone like that, I think there's something drastically wrong with them. But I guess to each their own. Jasmine, why don't we start? Well, let me preface this by saying Yvonne Wen is
Yes.
a mutual acquaintance of ours. So, how do you know Yvonne, who at the moment is Miss Teen California Earth USA? I'm trying to remember
Yeah.
now. Sorry, Yvonne, if I got that wrong. But how did you cross paths with Yvonne?
Yeah, so we originally met a few years ago at a local pageant. We had a mutual coach and we met there, and then we lost touch for a while and we got reconnected this past year at Miss California Teen USA. And I reached out to her after the pageant and just let her know if she needed any help with her nonprofit, that
Mm.
I'm always here and just to reach out if she ever needed help.
Yeah, I think her nonprofit just celebrated its first. Was it her first birthday? You might know. And then she
Yeah.
just celebrated her 20th. Is she celebrated her 20 now that she is? I think she's in
Yes,
Hawaii as we speak. I
she
saw her
is.
story. Okay, yeah. I saw, as I said, we're going into winter, and the last thing I need to see is photos of Hawaii. So thank you for that, Yvonne. Um, but why don't you tell the people watching or listening how you got into the crazy world of pageantry to begin with?
Yeah, I basically grew up in pageantry all my life. My mom competed in a couple of pageants before I was born, and so I kind of grew up watching Miss Universe every year, having my little pen and paper, writing my list down of who I thought was gonna win, and I held, like, mini pageants in my living room. I mean, of course, I always won in those, but I might have been a little biased. So my mom seeing that love for pageants, she put me in my first one when I was 10, and I
Mhm.
just kind of took off from there and haven't really stopped.
You said you had your pen and paper and you were making guessing the hot picks, I think they call them now.
Yeah.
How accurate were your hot picks? Because I think it's really funny. People call themselves pageant critics, and their hot picks are like they're batting at like 10% or 5% if they're lucky.
Yeah.
How were your hot picks?
I definitely think my hot picks are a little bit better now because back then
Okay.
I was just kind of, like, basing it off of I mean, I don't even remember what. I remember one year I remember one year my sister actually guessed the winner of the entire competition straight off the bat. It was the
Wow.
year that Angola won. She was the first girl to step out on stage, and my little sister was like, "That's my winner." And she didn't
Wow.
write
Okay.
anybody else's name down. That's the only person that she wanted on her list.
Was that just a lucky guess?
Probably. I mean, she was, like, 6 at the time, so she was probably, like,
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
first person out, like, "Okay, I'm
Yeah.
done now."
I mean, yeah, you probably need to see the other contestants before you can actually make a hot pick. You said your mom competed before you were born, so have you
Yeah.
and her ever talked about maybe how pageants were back when she was competing and how pageants have changed? Because obviously, back when she was competing, there wouldn't have been such a thing as social media, for
Yeah.
example.
I don't know if we've ever gotten into that kinds of conversations, before. I mean, yeah, I don't think we've had those conversations. I mean, she's obviously been a huge supporter and help in, like, training me to compete, but we haven't really sat down and talked about the differences, but that's definitely something we should do.
I'd be curious to hear her thoughts because obviously pageantry has changed a lot, especially with social media. What pageants have you competed in so far? So obviously you're now Miss Central Irvine, USA, and from my understanding, this
Mhm.
is the first time you'll be competing as a Miss. So
Yes.
that's a sizable step up for yourself. But what pageants have you competed in so far leading up to Miss California USA?
So I competed in a few like locals or regional pageants as a teen like 3 years ago, and then I spent the past 3 years competing at Miss California Teen USA. And unfortunately, I just aged out, so this year I'll be competing as a Miss, which I'm super excited for.
Are you one of the teens who wanted to stay a teen, or are you one of those teens who couldn't wait to try a hand at the Miss section?
I think I'm more of like a live in the moment type person. So when I was a teen, I was super excited to compete as a teen and like just gain that experience. But this past year when I was competing, I one of the biggest critiques that I got from my coaches and also a ton of people in the audience was that I just looked too much of a miss competitor to be
Too grown
competing as
up.
a teen. Yeah.
Do you ever know what that means? So does that mean like you're? Because I've had several teens who've been told basically that they seem too grown up, they seem too mature, and I'm never sure.
Yeah.
And that's it's all often a reflection from their interview because they speak very well. And
Mhm.
I'm just not sure how to take that comment because it's like, well, what do you want the girls to do? Say like, and ums and ahs,
Yeah.
and just talk about. It's a bit confusing for me. But what? So were you
Mhm.
told that basically you look too mature to be in
Mm.
teens, so we need to get you in the miss section?
Yeah, I think mostly it was my on stage since I have been, like, kind of, like, preparing for pageants my whole life. I have a very mature or, like, Miss Universe-esque walk and, like,
Okay.
aura about me when I'm on stage, so I definitely radiate and give off more Miss energy when I'm on stage than I do teen, and I think in interview, I'm more I've always been a person who connects better with adults, so I kind of
Mhm.
treat interview, like, more maturely and, like, less bubbly than a teen would, I guess, and
Yeah.
so I've always been told, like, "You should compete as a miss." So I've just been grateful for my time as a teen, but now I'm ready to compete and kinda get my footing in the miss section.
So now that you're lining up for run at the miss section, how are the I guess first off, when is the competition?
It's in 5 weeks, so
Ooh,
June 16th through the 18th.
okay. So how are the nerves at this stage? Excited?
Oh,
Nervous?
I'm so excited.
Both?
I am so excited. I as of right now, I don't have any nerves, because going
Okay.
into this year, I'm just kind of like, "I'm just gonna go and have fun. It's my first year as a Miss. I'm just gonna, like, get my feet in the water, like, test it out, get my footing, just no stress, go and have fun, be me."
What's the part that you most look forward to in general? I mean, in obviously you get to meet the girls competing, and I'm assuming that
Mhm.
you'll reconnect with some people that you've met before. But in terms of the competition, which is your favorite component?
Gown. I love being on stage, and I love, just wearing a gown that makes me feel elegant and beautiful, and just I feel like I come alive on stage, and I've been told that by many other people, like, I just shine on stage. That's where I really do my best, and that's always where, you can see it in my scores too when I get those back. I always get the highest place in gown just because I feel so confident, and it's my favorite part of the competition.
Where did that love for being on stage come from? I ask because there are some women who are petrified of ever getting on stage, and you don't seem to be one. So have you always had that
No.
love of stage, or did it come from competing in pageants over the years?
I think I've always had it. I mean, in elementary school, we always did those, like, plays and, like, musical type stuff, and, like, I was the person that was like, "I want the biggest role, I want the most lines, I want to be on
Right.
stage as much as possible." And then going out that continued out throughout middle school, doing choir and stuff, and then I was a competitive dancer in high school, and that just got me
Got it.
even more comfortable being on stage, and so I think that love, like, of being on stage and especially in front of a camera has always been there.
I was going to ask how you worked on your walk because there are a lot of girls, everyone wants to perfect their walk or make their
Mhm.
walk better. And I always think that you competitive dancers have an unfair leg up because you know how to move your body, you know how certain things look. What sort of work have you put into your walk? I mean, you mentioned that being on stage is your favorite component, particularly
Yeah,
gown. So, did the walking part come naturally to you as someone who's danced before?
100%. I mean, me and my mom have this running joke that I learned how to walk in heels before I learned how to walk regularly, because 'cause I've been wearing her pageant heels since I was, like, 3, and
Right.
so I have always been perfecting my walk, and one of the biggest ways I do so is, like, I also watch other competitors and I see like those critiques that I have for other competitors, like, and what I see that I like and dislike and kind of like add it to my own walk and just walking in front of a mirror or
Mm.
just video recording myself and like making those little tweaks.
Do you run in your heels? Can you run in your heels? That was a thing during the
Yeah.
pandemic. I saw all these TikToks of girls showing how they could run in heels. Did you do one
Yes.
of those?
I didn't film a video, but I can definitely run in heels. I That is the only time I will ever run. I won't run any other time unless I'm in heels, because you gotta learn how to
Okay.
get from the dressing room to the stage fast,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I learned how to run in heels, but I won't run any other time. It's a big no for me.
So when you say you can run in heels, and first off, I look at it and I'm just worried about your ankles. But do you
Mhm.
actually run, or is it that funny that a quick like penguin stutter step as you're running
No,
from room
I
to
am
stage?
sprinting. I am running. You will just see me like a blur. I'll just be a blur running past.
I think that should be your on-stage talent if there was one. Just watch you running across stage as fast as you can in your heels. When it comes to a walk, do you have? I mean, like for example, Catriona Gray, I think had the lava walk or whatever they
Mhm.
called it. So when you're putting together the choreography for your walk, how do you
Mhm.
how do you do that? Do you have names for certain parts? Are there certain aspects that you work on and you go, I want to incorporate this? Do you have to look at the stage first and then decide how you're going to walk?
Yeah, I there's a few factors for me. One is stage, because I've had stages where it's like a long runway stage, and I've also had ones where they're
Yeah.
like horizontal stages where you have to walk side to side instead of front to back. And
Mm,
then it also depends on the gown or sportswear that I was wearing, now swimsuit.
yeah.
So that all goes into it. And I kind of like wait till last minute because I don't want to be too rehearsed. I'm the type of person that if I have a set plan and then I don't do that plan, then I'm like, oh, that was so bad, and I get tripped up. So I'm kind of like what I feel in the moment and what goes with the gown and
Yeah.
also the stage.
What about if someone's watching this and they are a terrible walker? They're not, well, not a terrible walker, but let's say they haven't had the dancing experience that you've had and they're petrified of going on stage. Maybe it's their first pageant and they're
Yeah.
worried about how to do the walk.
Mhm.
If you were coaching them,
Mhm.
where would you begin? What advice would you give a complete beginner?
A complete beginner? Okay, well, one of my biggest pet peeves is bent knees. I cannot deal with the bent knees, like, at all. So I will first and foremost tell them the posture is everything, like, being upright, the shoulders back, present yourself, and fake it till you make it. If you don't feel confident, just act like you're confident because the confidence comes with just practice and being on stage, and to be honest, most of the time when you hit that stage, you kind of just forget about everything else and you live in the moment. But like I said, those straight knees, those are a big thing for me. I cannot handle when girls do not straighten their knees when they're walking.
They walk with bent. How do you walk in with bent knees and heels? Wouldn't you just fall flat on your face?
They do like my mom, this might sound kind of bad, but my mom likes to call it a giraffe walk. So they
Oh,
kind of look like baby giraffes with their bent knees when
okay.
they're walking.
All right. So no baby giraffes on stage. I just saw on Instagram someone posted up an absolutely terrible walk. I don't know. I think it was from an overseas pageant, and this girl was walking down the stage and slapping herself as she was. It was all kinds of terrible. Terrible.
I just saw that video this morning too.
I
I
don't
was
know
dying
what went.
laughing.
So what do you think? I mean, that was memorable, probably not in any
Mhm.
sort of a good way.
Yeah,
So what do you think of a walk like that? So obviously, I imagine that girl's gone. Well, this is my 5 seconds of fame, and I want to go viral. And even if I don't win the pageant, at least people will remember
yeah.
me. But when you look at a walk like that, is any part of that like, yes, I would have advised someone to do that, or is it just like, what on earth are you thinking, girl?
Well, I mean, coaches and other girls can do as much as they can, but if a competitor has a plan or a mindset, they're gonna do what they wanna do, like, regardless of what their coach tells them to do. So if that competitor really wanted to just have that, like, viral moment, she's gonna get that viral moment.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure she'd want a viral moment for that reason, though. I imagine your walk is not going to look anything like that one. Hopefully, on
No.
stage. How long? In terms of prep. So obviously, you are. It seems like you're a natural on stage. So when it
Mhm.
comes to preparing for pageant and making sure that you're as ready as you can be, do you still have to work really hard on your walk, or at this stage is it something that you can more go? I know how to walk. I just need to see the stage, and then I'll put it together on the day.
For the walking aspect, that's pretty much,
Yeah.
my thought process. I mean, I love walking in heels, so I'll just practice it for fun. But for me, a lot of my prep, more lies so towards interview and
Hmm.
on-stage question, because I'm the type I have, like, really good opinions and strong beliefs. I just have trouble putting them into sentences and, like, being efficient and effective with my answers and getting everything out that I need to in a timely manner. So that's where a lot of my prep has gone into the past
Yeah.
couple of years. Um, but yeah, and of course, being both mentally and physically healthy is also another huge aspect that's important to me as well.
Yeah, I think given I don't know how long you guys get given for your interview. I mean, normally it could be like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And having an opinion is one thing, but trying to answer as many questions as you can in 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, five, whatever it is, can definitely be a challenge. What has your journey been like? So if I take you back to maybe not when you first competed, because you said at the age of
Mhm.
10, but take you back to before the first time you competed in Miss Teen California to now. Tell me
Mhm.
what your growth has been like. How have you changed as a person?
I I've gained so much incredible tenacity and just being able to get back up, that resilience. Going
Mhm.
into my first year at competing at Miss California Teen USA, I was coming off of a three-time losing streak at locals, and I kept losing to the same girl over and over again. And she was going to be there at the state pageant. I was competing against her. And so I was just going in and hoping to do my best. And that year I placed top five. And that was so, like, baffling to me. I was just so incredibly thankful and, like, honored that the judges, saw me and, like, respected, like, how much work that I put into that, and so I've taken every year that I haven't won just as motivation for the next year, and, like, okay, after the pageant, I literally the pageant ends on Sunday. Monday morning, I'm waking up like, "Let's go. Let's get ready for next year. What can I do better?" I would walk into the living room, I'd tell my mom, I'd be like, "Okay, I'm ready for next year. Let's go."
So there's no downtime. It's straight to planning for the
Mhm.
next year's competition.
Yes,
So
yes.
what did you pick up from that time when you placed top 5? And it's by the
Mhm.
sounds of it, you weren't expecting it. What
Yeah.
were some of the big takeaways or lessons that you learned from that?
I think just believing in myself and, like, not looking or worried about other competitors. I was that first year, I was kind of, like, focused on, "Well, this girl, like, beat me in locals," and, like, all that other stuff, and realized that you can look around at other competitors and appreciate their hard work, but that doesn't discredit your own hard work or how, like, good and, like, how, like, much work you put into it too.
Yeah,
And you, like, never really know, like, different day, different judge, different outcome.
100%. I'm just thinking in terms of timeline. Obviously, you're 20 now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we had a small thing called the COVID pandemic. Now, you would have been in school, I imagine, during that time, and also being a competitive dancer. I've interviewed people who were at school and were competitive dancers during the pandemic, and being in school was difficult because you basically didn't go to school. And then being a dancer was even more difficult because you couldn't go to dance studios, and you guys love to move your bodies, and suddenly we were all locked indoors and we couldn't go anywhere. And you
Yes.
mentioned resilience. So I just want to ask, the pandemic, how was it for yourself?
I'm probably one of the few people that I needed the pandemic. That was such a blessing for me. Uh, Before the pandemic, for 2 years straight, I was up at 6 AM, not getting home till, like, midnight, and I was a competitive
Wow.
dancer, doing school, pageants, like, all of this other stuff, and, like, I really had no time to just rest and kind of, like, restore my body, and so I was so incredibly grateful for the pandemic because it taught me to just, like, slow down and really appreciate, like, all of, like, the little moments, and I got to spend a lot more time with my parents because, like, I really never got to see them before, and so we spent a lot of time together just, like, working out together, watching TV, like, finding new hobbies to do that we could do during COVID.
Was it difficult when things sort of went back to normal to not immediately load your plate up again with everything?
For me, no. I kind of at that point learned how to kind of balance my life, learn how to say no to some things because I'm a big people pleaser, so I used to be able to never say no. So I learned how to just balance and listen to my body and my mind and know when I just needed to, like, take a rest, take a step back from things, and when I was good enough to do others.
And has California basically returned to normal? Because there's some places in the world, for example, Japan is only just now sort of going back to normal, whereas other places went back to normal seemingly a long, long, long time ago. So,
Mhm.
how is California in that regard?
I'd say we're pretty much back to normal now. I think we got back to almost 100% normal back in January when a lot of the colleges lifted the restriction on vaccine requirements to be able
Hmm.
to go on campus. That was kind of like in my life, that was kind of like the last little milestone before going back to complete normalcy.
Sure. So what do you do? So outside of the pageant, do you have and everything else you do, what sort of advocacies are closest to your heart? So you're going to be competing in 5 weeks or
Yes.
thereabouts. Um, and if you were to look back at this, let's say in 10 years from now, what would you have most like to be remembered for?
I think for me, one of my biggest impacts that I wanna do right now is making a change in the mental health within the entertainment industry. A lot of people talk about mental health, but a lot of people don't talk about combining it to the entertainment industry, like models, actors, and actresses. You are all the time, like, going to castings and putting yourself out there only to get rejected so many times. And I think that's what I wanna do. I wanna go in and help these people who are either new or old in the industry and help them learn how to have a healthy mindset when going to all these castings and all of this time that they're being told no or, like, having shut doors on their face,
Mm.
because that's something that not a lot of people have focused on, is that, like, little niche in the mental health, like, movement that we've been on in the past couple of years.
I like the sound of that because yes, a lot of people have spoken about mental health, but I think it's always more useful to talk about sort of practical solutions within particular people's lives. I mean, in the acting and entertainment industry, which is obviously huge where you're at, I mean, the stereotype is, wannabe actress working at a cafe part time, and then obviously you have minimum wage and things like that, which isn't a lot in America. But in terms of rejection, how many no's are we talking about? Because in my estimation, a lot of people, no one likes being rejected. At least I don't
Yeah.
think so. But it seems to me like not only in, I mean, in pageantry is a good case in point because
Mhm,
pageantry, you put your best out there, and sometimes you're just not picked, and that can be
mhm,
difficult. But the entertainment industry's got to be the same thing. I imagine you have 100 models, 1,000 models casting for one thing, whether it's
mhm.
Sports Illustrated or something like that, and then for the next Hollywood blockbuster or the next Netflix series, same thing. So in terms of rejection, I mean, how have you learnt to deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get told no more than you get told yes, but I coined this motto, and it's one that I have spoken about, and it's a big part of my workshop that I do with Yvonne at her model workshops. It's every no is one step closer to your yes, and it only takes one yes to change your life. And that's kind of what I always like to remember. Every time I get told no, or every time there's a shut door in my face, I'm like, okay, well, what can I do better for next time? What can I tweak here? What can I tweak there? And also, a lot of the times, both in modeling and in acting, the agents go into it kind of knowing what they're looking for. You just might
Mm.
not be what they're looking for on that day, but you never know if you gave up, you could have prematurely stopped that yes from happening because you gave into the no's.
Is it ever difficult, whether it's in pageants or modeling or acting, is it ever difficult to balance sort of going, okay, well, the person they were looking for, it just wasn't me, so that's okay,
Mhm,
versus is there something that I could have done better? Because I got to think that's a difficult part because when you get rejected, which no one likes, the temptation is always to go, well, why was I rejected? And then you go, if you're anything like me, you start going, okay, well, I need to get better at A, B, C, D, whatever it is. But then
mhm,
sometimes, as you said, they're looking for someone else, whether it's
mhm.
blonde, brunette, or someone like that. Is it difficult to balance those two sides?
I think it's all about learning how to do it. It's definitely not easy. It didn't come easy for me, like, at all. Like I said in the beginning, I was focused on, like, everybody else and, like, what they brought to the table, and, like, I wasn't recognizing what I brought to the table too. I
Mm,
think it's just finding that, like, confidence in yourself and knowing, "No, what I brought to the table was good. Maybe it just wasn't what they're looking for. Maybe I can just tweak it a little bit here and there." I also one of the like I told you earlier, I get up the next morning, I'm like, "Okay, what's next?" Because I've noticed when you kind of, like, dwell and sit into that
mhm.
no, that's when you kind of, like it festers and it just grows, and that's when you fall into that downward spiral. So if you, like, just keep pushing forward, keep moving forward, you kind of, like, don't fall into that rut, and that's what I like trying to do.
So you've gotten better at dealing with rejection then?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's an important point because I think I mean, pageantry again is a good case. If you don't get to win your title, some people can think about it, or as you said, fester on it for
Mhm.
months or maybe even longer and become very, very resentful. And I don't think that helps anyone. I think the best thing to do is to pick yourself up and move on and just improve in the ways that you can. Obviously, you're young. Have you given any thought to where you see yourself in a year from now, 5 years from now, God forbid, 10 years from now? You'll be 30.
Mm. I have goals, but I try and like I said earlier, I try not to set very specific goals or standards for myself because then if I don't reach them, then I'm disappointed. So I kind of have like big goals that I want to achieve and like just reaching those. Like I definitely want to get more into different acting roles and more into
Mhm.
modeling, but there's nothing like super specific I have planned because then if I don't reach those, I don't want that disappointment. So I just kind of like, well, what is for me will come to me. And till then, I just work towards those big goals that I have.
And your pageant is in 5 weeks. So is
Yeah.
everything prepped and good to go?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, just before we get to the final 10 questions, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to for supporting you along your journey?
I think my parents are my biggest ones. They're such amazing supporters in pageants. They're always like, "Well, we're gonna support you in what you ever you want to do." Of course, my mom doing pageants before me, she was very open to it, but I know a lot of girls don't get that support from their parents, and
Mm,
I'm just so incredibly thankful for all of their time, effort, and financial help that they've been able to give me. I cannot say thank you enough to them and how much that they've sacrificed for me to be able to do that. And also my little sister, she's just always like a little supporter. She's always like reposting my Instagram and like social media
yeah.
stuff onto hers, like supporting me. So I'm incredibly grateful for my family and also all of my incredibly supportive friends. I have a really great group of friends that I met back in September that just they're the first friend group that I've ever had that fully support my pageants, and they are so excited to watch me compete in 5 weeks because they haven't seen me compete yet. So I'm just so
Okay.
incredibly grateful for my entire support system.
Does your little sister compete in pageants?
No. When I first competed when I was 10, she competed too. She was 5, and she has not given it a second thought since.
It's funny that even within the same family, you can have someone who's so drawn to pageants, and then someone who's just got the complete opposite. But I guess it happens. Okay, so let's get into these final 10 questions, random questions. Number one,
Okay.
what is your favorite word?
My favorite word?
Hmm.
Oh my goodness. Um, I'm not sure if I have a favorite word. I
What's a word that you use way too much? Then
mm, I don't know. I'd have to ask my friends or family on that one. I'm I guess I'm more of like a reserved type person. So I kind of am the type of person that, like, collects all of my thoughts and, like, speaks when I, like, have
Have something
something
to say.
when I have something to say. Other than that, I'm a really big listener. I love listening just to kind of everyone around me and, like, responding when I have fully thought over everything because I know how much words can be impactful, so I like to be very careful in what I say.
That's fair enough. Well, number 2 is the opposite. So what is your least favorite word?
Mm, my least favorite word, I think anything that has to do that's not positive. I know that's not one word, but I am not a fan of unpositive words, specifically curse words. I they're they are completely vetoed from my entire vocabulary.
Number 3 in life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
Mm, I think my family and my friends, they all keep me held accountable, and every time they, like, text me to do something, I'm always there to jump to do it with them.
And what about what turns you off?
I think people who are not upfront with you, like, people who kind of say one thing to your face and do another or, like, kind of talk behind your back.
Number 5, what sound or noise do you love?
Hmm. I love music overall. Like I mentioned, I'm a pretty big dancer, so you'll catch me just having full-on dance parties in the living room, in the mirror, just walking down the hallway. Yeah, it's a running thing between me and my friends. We'll be like in a grocery store or something, I'll just start dancing in the middle of the grocery store because I hear the music playing over the speakers.
Number 6, what sound or noise do you hate?
Snoring. I can't deal with snoring whatsoever.
Okay.
Like,
I don't think
when
anyone likes that sound, but yeah, I mean, I was just
no,
gonna ask, like, have you had much experience with having to put up with snoring?
yeah, my dad is a pretty big snorer, so, like, I have to go and close his door, close my door, and we're on opposite sides of the house, and if I can still hear him, I will not be falling asleep anytime soon.
Sounds like you need earplugs.
Maybe.
Oh, have you ever heard of a white noise machine?
I have, my mom actually has one.
You might need one. I mean, this morning my cat wouldn't shut up, so and he was like going off at 5 a.m. He wanted to be fed, so I just turned. It was
Oh.
that same. So that sound that really just annoys you, and I just turned on my white noise machine, and I couldn't hear him, and I went back to sleep. Sounds like you might need one of those. Number
Maybe.
number 7. If you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
Ooh, teleportation. I'm a huge traveler. Both my parents work in aviation. My mom's a flight attendant, my dad's a private pilot. So I kind of grown up my entire life traveling, and I love getting to experience new places. And if I could be there in like a drop of a hat without having to spend any money, because I can just come home and not have to pay for hotels or anything, that would definitely be a huge like plus. So definitely teleportation.
If both your parents work in aviation, do you get to fly a lot?
Yes, I do.
That's pretty cool. Where how many flights are we talking about? Because normally, I mean, especially after the pandemic, no one was able to go anywhere. So are you like on a flight every other week, once a month, once a year?
Oh my goodness. At least once a month for sure, but I'm pretty sure I've
Wow.
probably been on over like 2 or 300 planes in my lifetime.
Okay, so give me some travel tips because I love traveling, but getting through the
Mhm.
airport is not my favorite pastime. Trying to get through customs and security and all that
Mhm.
stuff. So do you have any tips, any travel tips specifically getting on and off of planes?
I always wear slip-on shoes so I don't have to deal with laces.
Okay.
That's a big one for me. Put I make sure before going to the airport, all of my liquids are under the required
Yep.
ounceage, and I always leave space in my suitcase because I It's for some reason, it always seems like you're coming back with more, even if you didn't buy anything.
That's called
So I
shopping.
always well, even if I didn't buy anything, like, it always seems like I come back with more. How that works, I have no clue. So I always leave a little space in my suitcase, and, I mean, I might not be the best person to ask because I fly standby, so I don't have confirmed seats, so we always show up to the airport,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
45 minutes before the plane takes off, so I might not be the best person to be taking a whole bunch of advice on traveling from.
But you gotta love being pretty spontaneous if you're taking the standby flights because you never really know whether you're gonna get on or not. So, I mean, that's gotta be pretty I
Yeah.
mean, for some people, it'd be terrifying, but other people would find that really exciting.
No, yeah, it's kind of a here, there, everywhere. My
Yeah,
mom is, like she always says, "At least if we get one step closer." So if we can't get that, the one leg where it's a straight flight all the way there, we might have
yeah.
to take 3 stops, but as long as it's one step closer to where we're supposed to be, it's a win in our books.
3 stops is maybe maybe pushing it a lot. Um, I just need to ask specifically to American Airlines and the subject of carry-ons. You
Mhm.
know, carry-ons are supposed to be a certain size, at least that's what I think. And yet, when I get to America, the carry-ons seem to they're much bigger than I would like. They say it should be this size, and then people are walking on with things that are 5 times the size. Is there a particular I mean, maybe your mom would know, but is there a particular policy with carry-ons? No, that's too big. You have to chuck it in, check it in. Because when I go, like, there's no space, and then
Mhm.
there's massive, massive cases. So what is
Yeah.
going on with carry-ons?
As far as I know, as if it's like a suitcase that you're putting in the overhead compartments, as long as it
Yeah.
fits into those compartments, you're good. And for a personal item, it just has to fit underneath the seat in front of you. If it doesn't, that's where you start running into problems.
Okay. All right. So, for example, you being a pageant contestant, if you had a crown and your crown was in a crown case, can that be
Mhm.
taken on as a personal item, or does that need to be stored in the overhead?
No, that can be your personal item. It can fit right under your seat.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, depending on the size of a crown. If it's like a huge one,
Huge.
like you
Yeah.
see, like if it's like a huge one you see on like toddlers and tiaras, that don't think that'll make it through.
Yeah, where the crown is bigger than the person wearing it. Yeah, not talking about probably that case, but yeah, I take your point. All right, so that was question 7, talking about flying and superpowers and teleportation. Number 8, what job would you most like to attempt?
To attempt. Hmm. This might not be like a big job, but I kind of have like a dream of being a judge on a baking competition show.
Oh, not you as well.
So so I would
This
love doing that.
I don't know what it's been like recently. You're like the 3rd person to answer that question with that specificity. It's not
Oh my
a judge on a
goodness.
reality show. It's a judge.
No.
There must be some show out there, and I don't watch much TV. There must be some baking show out there. Do you have one in mind? I mean, you can't be a judge on a
Um,
baking show. There are no baking shows. So what's the baking
there
show that's out there?
oh, I don't there's so many here in the US. There's, like, the Great
Oh,
Baking Show, Cupcake Wars, Duff's
Cupcake
Baking
Wars. That's the
Competition.
one that I wanna hear about. So Cupcake Wars, this is
Yeah.
just people baking, right? Because when I heard
Yeah.
Cupcake Wars, my imagination went to people with cupcakes throwing them at each
So
other. So is it that, or is it just baking?
no, it's baking.
Oh, okay. I'm kinda
No, but
disappointed with that.
yeah, no, I love, like, judging things,
Okay,
and desserts are one of my weak points, so just
okay,
getting to there, sitting and judging desserts,
okay.
that'd be great. I mean, it'd also be kinda cool to be a judge at a pageant. I really wanna do that too.
But you wouldn't get to eat such tasty things if you were a judge at a
No,
pageant.
no. See, that's why I said baking first.
Okay. Just for future reference, if you happen to be a judge on a baking show, what are you partial to? Are we like chocolate,
Ooh,
strawberry? Like what flavors?
I don't know if it's necessarily flavors, but just cookies and cheesecake in general. So if there was, like, a cookie dough cheesecake, automatic winner. No competition there. You've already got my vote.
Cookie dough is such a funny one, isn't it? It's like I almost prefer the cookie dough over the actual baked cookie. And then so cheesecake though, let's talk about cheesecakes because I love cheesecakes. It's like
Mhm.
probably my favorite cake. What how do you like your cheesecake? Because I like some like a New York cheesecake, the big
Mm.
thick one. Sometimes it's chocolate, sometimes no. What's your favorite style of cheesecake
I think right now my favorite is
right now?
caramel apple cheesecake. It kind of
Wow.
rotates, but right now it's caramel apple cheesecake.
How often when you say rotate, it makes me think that every week there's a different flavor that you're how many different cheesecakes have you eaten?
A lot. Okay. When I
Okay.
say rotates, it's probably every couple of months it rotates. Um, but for the past couple for the past, like, month, 2 months, it's been the caramel apple cheesecake. But if there's a cheesecake put in front of me, I'll eat it.
You'll eat it.
Yeah.
Um, are you getting these from a store nearby, or are you baking them? Is your mum like, who's baking them? Like, I can only think, like, if you're rotating even if it's rotating every 2 months, where's this continual supply of cheesecakes coming from?
Okay, so most of the time I get just 1 slice from, like, the Cheesecake Factory.
Oh,
So
okay, right.
it's not like a whole cheesecake. That's way too much. I mean, but it's kind of sad right now because I won't be having any cheesecake for the next 5 weeks. Um,
Okay.
but it's my treat for after I compete. Every time I've competed, my mom always gets me a cheesecake for after.
Oh, I forgot about the Cheesecake Factory. I have been to the Cheesecake Factory when I was in America, but I didn't get to eat any cheesecake, disappointingly. I just had like a chicken salad or something like that. What flavor cheesecake are we having in 5 weeks? Have you given any
Um,
thought to this? Are you planning that far ahead?
Probably caramel apple. That's right now,
Okay.
but maybe I'll switch it up and try something else. I'm maybe red velvet. That's another big favorite of mine. So
Wow, okay. Never seen a red velvet cheesecake. This is something that I must try. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So that was what job would you most like to attempt? Question 9, what job would you definitely not like to attempt?
anything where like a desk job, I don't think I could do that. Just sitting all day long doing the same thing every day, I would get so bored. I'm someone who has to be doing something different every single day.
I think that's a typical answer for a dancer. You guys just can't sit still. You need to be moving. So the thought of sitting at a desk is just like terrible for all of you. I can understand that. Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome home. Just as simple as that. Just welcome.
Nice. Well, Jasmine, that's about it. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I've had so much fun today.
Well, and best of luck in 5 weeks. I am going to insist that when you do eat that piece of cheesecake, that you post it at least on your stories and tag me in it because I need to see all these delicious cheesecakes that I've been missing out on. The very first thing I ever learned to bake was a cheesecake. Let's put it that way. So I am a cheesecake fanatic. But yeah, I will keep you on the line for just a second whilst I hang up with the audience. Thanks to everyone for watching or listening, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Sorority Access is now open. So if you'd like to join an amazing group of women and learn how to be the most powerful, confident, and impactful queen possible, head to thepageantsorority.com. I'll see you there and see you in the next video.